Hi, and welcome to Black on the Mat, the space where culture, community, and yoga intersect through our lived experiences. We're your host. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Seisha. Join us on this journey to bring representation and shed light on often overlooked stories on the yoga mat.
We're creating an accessible roadmap into yoga for Black people, building a community in this predominantly white space.
And letting folks already into yoga know that we're here.
We're so happy to have you here on the show. You have been instrumental in my practice. So I just was like, oh yeah, I have to have her. She's just amazing. Like you just have an aura around you that is so beautiful that I was like, she has to be here. People need to know more about her, more about her story. Like I need people to know why she's amazing. So can you just kind of give our listeners a brief introduction about yourself and about your journey into yoga?
Yeah, totally. Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me and saying those really beautiful words. I really appreciate it. I think I'll kind of make it quick because it's such a long story. When I think about it, I'm like, man, I started practicing yoga in the 1900s.
Also in the 1990s.
I love saying that. But yeah, it was in the 90s. And I mean, I started practicing it like many people in a moment where I was going through a really difficult moment in my life. And I started practicing because my older brother was dealing with complications related to AIDS. He had already been diagnosed, many years prior. But in that moment, one of my friends suggested to take a yoga class. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll see what happens. Because the only thing that I really knew about yoga was Rodney Yee and his videos and whatnot on, what is it, PBS.
Mhm.
That's all I knew. And so jumped into that practice. By the time I relocated from New Orleans and moved to Washington, D.C., that was sometime around 2000. I continued my practice, continued studying, and then I left. I was doing nonprofit work, actually. I left the nonprofit world, decided to move to New York. And when I moved to New York, I spent the summer just bouncing around from one yoga studio to the next in New York. And then I finally found my yoga home, did my yoga teacher training in 2003. And from there, I didn't really have a major focus. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to teach people what I've experienced in this practice and how it has assisted me through not only dealing with, the illness of my brother and when his passing, but also dealing with the stress of working in DC on the Hill for a major nonprofit. I'm like, okay, that's stress enough. And that was also like during the time where Ryan White was that law was starting to, they wanted to not pass it again. And so we were doing a lot of lobbying. So it was a lot of stress in my life. So it's like my yoga practice carried me through all of those major moments in my life. And then teaching brought me back to DC because my younger brother, oddly enough, was like, hey, you should come and teach yoga in DC. There are no Black studios here. He's like, I think that's weird.
In Chocolate City.
Right. And he wasn't even into yoga, but he still was like, something's odd about this. We're in Chocolate City. And yeah. So that's what I did. I relocated. I went back to DC, opened up my first yoga studio. That was Shakti Mind Body Studio. We were in Mount Vernon Triangle. I was there for probably like about 5 years. And then I had a business partner at the time. Her and I split. And then I opened up my second studio, which was Embrace Yoga DC. And Embrace was open for 11 years. We made it through the freaking pandemic, reopened. And then I woke up one morning and I was like, I'm done. I'm so done. I had worked harder during the pandemic than I'd worked in the 8 years or 7 years, 8 or 9 years, however many years prior. And I was like, I was exhausted. I was like, I need time for me. And so, yeah, so those are like my studio days. But in the midst of all of that, I feel like my career had some major highlights. I mean, being on the cover of Yoga Journal twice, I've written books, I've appeared in various wellness platforms throughout the years and partnered with so many different companies and major collaborations, not only just within the yoga space, but in the wellness space and in other health spaces. And so it's been, I have to say, it's been a beautiful run when I think about it, but I think it's been this magical level of consistency because I've just been passionate about the practice. Yeah.
That is beautiful. And so personally, I am just learning about more of your physical studio ownership as opposed to your online presence, right? Like I know you as spiritually fly. Um, and that's my connection to you. And I know a lot of us, especially a lot of the listeners to this episode, that's the connection that their point of connection they're going to have to you. So, how does that come into a play, or like, how did that start along with this, entrepreneurial type of journey? Because let me tell you, it's a lot to do both, but you did. So,
Girl, you are telling me it is a lot. That's a really interesting question because it actually, Spiritually Fly came about when I had my first studio. And we're brand new in DC. It was two amazing African American women like running this space. And my students were always coming in because I love teaching on Sunday. I mean, I couldn't get away from my Southern Baptist roots, even though I didn't go to church, but I enjoyed teaching on Sunday. And a couple of my students were just like always saying like how beautiful blended the practice was and how full it was. And then one of my students was like, girl, I have a problem. And I said, what's your problem? And I'm thinking it's something yoga related. And she's like, my pastor is upset because I've been coming here on Sunday mornings instead of going to church. And I was like, oh my. And she's like, I'm not sure that I want to go back to church. I said, like, I like going, to experience that, but I like going on Wednesdays, or I like going, other times in the church does things, but I need this practice on Sunday because it sets the tone for the rest of my week. I feel more whole, more balanced, and blah, blah, blah. And I, continued to inquire. The next Sunday, she rolls back in. And so I asked her, it's like, what brought you back? Right? What brought you back? And she said, the thing that brought me back is that it was so spiritual, and it was fly, and it was urban. And I was like, what? Spiritually Fly. And so I told my business partner, I was like, girl, I'm naming this class Spiritually Fly. She goes, what is that? I was like, I don't know, but it's what people are feeling.
it's this,
It's
right?
this.
It's this energy, it's this energy. And so from there, it was a class. And then, of course, when social media happened, I looked for my name, right? I went on Instagram and I was like, oh, let me put in my name, Faith Hunter. And it was a lot. I was like, I didn't know there were that many Faith Hunters. Okay. And so my romantic partner at the time, he was like, well, just name it Spiritually Fly. Just go with that. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I did. And that tag, that name has turned into so many different things. It's, for me, it's a way of life, and it's the way that I like. I always say the way that I like to roll, because I feel like I'm this interesting balance between, I mean, I grew up in the 80s. I'm fly, yo, the 80s and 90s, that was our vibe. But also I still am very tapped into spirituality. And so from a yoga class to becoming workshops to me really diving into the essence of what people were experiencing, because I mean, of course, I was doing yoga teacher trainings at the time, and my students were like, so can we call our classes Spiritually Fly? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I'm gonna figure it out. And so I was like, yeah, if this is what you're experiencing, but also this is what you're teaching, this is the methodology that I'm sharing, yes, feel free to call your classes Spiritually Fly. I think some of them are afraid to call it that. I think I probably had like maybe four, because they're like, I don't know. But it also turned into some powerful mantras. It became a book. Of course, it's what people know on social media. And the funniest part is that when I was living in DC, I would literally walk down the street, or I'd be like at the grocery store in like, well, one day I was in the grocery store with my bathrobe on and some Uggs because I lived below the grocery store, and I was like, I'm not changing clothes. It's 11 o'clock at night. I just want ice cream and a bottle of wine. That's what I'm going for
Sounds
right now.
fabulous.
So I'm like, I'm not getting out of these clothes. Well, my bathrobe and Uggs. And so I walked down in the grocery store, and someone goes, spiritually fly?
Like spiritually caught.
Like, I was like, hey, how you doing? So it's all things. It's all things.
I love that story. Oh, that's hilarious. For me, like I love the fact that so I have the book, read the book, love the book. I've been following you for a bit, and our stories not completely match, but like I found Kundalini yoga, kind of like you, kind of
Mm.
stepped into it accidentally. It was like this, oh, okay, take this class. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I don't know what this Kundalini yoga thing is, but it was after having six people die. And so
Mm.
for me, yoga became a place of spirituality. It became a place of inner healing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious for you, how do you tie your yoga practice with your self-discovery path or just healing in general?
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I think part of it is that, like you, I found the practice when I needed the healing.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that in those moments when I'm experiencing the challenge, or I've made a misstep, right? Or I've experienced a heartbreak, or a family member passes, or even when I'm like, oh my God, do I need to keep this business? I mean, because that could be heart-wrenching as well, right? Making those hard decisions in life, I always fall back on what has kept me whole. And so, not forgetting that my meditation, my breath work practice, like even today, like I woke up, I was like, oh my God, am I in this 53-year-old body? Lord, help me, help me. So, what did I do? I unroll my mat. Well, my mat stays unrolled all the time, but I jump on my mat, I grab my roller balls, and I turn on a meditation. And the meditation was about stepping into my strength and my greatest self, and
Mm.
seeing myself as vibrant. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to roll, release that tension, breathe, and allow myself to feel vibrant, feel okay, feel strong, right? Just because I'm aging and my body is changing and shifting, I'm still mentally vibrant. I'm still physically, spiritually vibrant. And so knowing that my practice is always there for me, regardless of what stage I am in my life, even in those moments, it's not just about experiencing those hard, difficult moments, or those, tight moments in your physical or emotional bodies, but even in those moments of celebration, I'm like, praise the Lord. And I'm gonna do my spiritual happy dance. I'm gonna light my candles and thank all my ancestors for supporting me to even make it to this moment.
I think that's important. I think we need that. I don't know how do you handle, how do you add spiritual self-development into your practice, Stacia?
So I would say that my biggest thing for me is journaling. That's my go-to as far as reflection. And I use the physical practice of yoga, in a traditional way of getting my body, getting all the energy together and gathering myself and working out all the things and getting into all the little nooks and crannies, and then pouring my heart out into this paper, and
Mm.
getting it all out in that way, and allowing myself to just to get rid of all the extra noises and voices and things like that, and actually pour out what is in me trying to come out. Because I agree that I feel like yoga finds people when they are in that healing space. And for myself, I didn't necessarily find it that way. And then when I connected to it was that, right? Like I happened upon it. And then like going through my marriage deteriorating and getting my divorce. And like, really, we were in the church, and I was in the church because of him. I didn't grow up really heavily Christian or anything. And then what I learned from the church is y'all support people that act like this. I don't know about that. Um, so I had to figure out what that looks like for me. What does that spirituality look like for me? What does that reflection look like? What is that space? And so I really do appreciate that, like, yeah, you know what? This is church on Sunday. This is the choir rehearsal. This is the, this is the Bible study right here. We are learning about ourselves. We are learning and becoming more introspective and ruminating more in our own spaces. And that's the difference to me between yoga and other religions, that it's like you come back to the center of self, right? All the things that we get taught in the history of yoga and its origins are like, well, the universe is within you.
Mm.
And so I feel like it's a big thing that some people do actually when they start practicing. They try to participate in basically like the spiritual bypassing. They try to just scoop it away. This is my emotions that brought them all out. Gotta chuck them.
I'm healed. Look, I know how to do Gyan Mudra.
I
You
did a
throw it
handstand like
out
a half a
there.
time. I know all the yoga things and I'm done. You
Yeah.
know?
I got the clothes. I got my Lululemons. I'm good. People out
So
there.
so I'm just wondering, Faith, as a person that did put faith and spirituality and all that into your yoga practice, um, how do you address that in your teaching in order to help people, and how can our listeners help themselves like really integrate more of a full spectrum of yoga versus the spiritual bypassing and pushing it out of the way?
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I feel like sometimes I trick people into not spiritual bypassing when I'm teaching.
Ooh, what's the tool? What's the
How you
tool?
trick them?
And so and my friends that have practiced with me, that I mean, I just did a retreat here in New Orleans, and one of my friends, I mean, I've known her for like over 20 years, and she's worked in my studios before, and she did yoga teacher training with me, and we're friends, of course. But she goes, "Girl, why you always get me to cry?" And I'm like, because I asked the right questions. And so when you were talking about the journaling, what I do, I mean, if you know, in my book, there's lots of journal prompts, and then I have other journals, and I'm always encouraging people to do some reflection. So when I teach, I offer up those moments of reflection so that, as they're in not just the pigeon pose, which is our favorite, the one that we all love to deal with the emotions, but even if they're just like standing in mountain pose, I'm invoking sound, right? So the music is playing. And then I'm getting chills right now. And then I'm asking them a question, or I'm encouraging them to do some self-inquiry. One of the really powerful moments that happened 2 Saturdays ago at our retreat is that we were outside doing our Saturday morning practice, and I knew that I wanted to pull in some of the sounds of Louisiana, right? Very specifically, the African American sound current that is so powerful here. And so I'm playing the music, and the sound is coming in, and you're hearing the Indians, right? New Orleans Indians just doing their chants, and it's like so beautiful. And then I'm like, okay, I want you to think about your ancestors who has supported you to just arrive here in this moment. And now I want you to say their name.
Ooh.
We're just standing in mountain pose. So I gear them up to be in mountain pose, right? This is for my teachers. I'm gearing them up to be in mountain pose. I'm talking about grounding in the feet and like what this land that we're standing upon is about, and like feel that energy starts to rise, right? And knowing that, this land, this earth, this soil is infused with the Mississippi, and like how our ancestors came up the Mississippi. Like I'm just doing all the things. And so then I drop that moment of now call their names. And so it gets people to come face to face with their lives. And so as teachers, I find that we have to be unafraid to push those buttons, right? We have to be fearless to support our students. Because I mean, I can easily just walk into a class and teach some poses, or I can like teach a meditation practice and okay, guys, thank you so much. Or even just, offer something online that's just really simplistic and still great. But if I'm not encouraging them to create even a small shift mentally, then they're just going to finish what they're doing and go out and continue the same thing. They're going to continue to move through the same old habits. And so I feel that my role is, not Faith, the yoga teacher, but my role as Faith, and I don't say this very often, but Faith as the healer and the healing guide is to open up that portal and say, come on, let's walk through together. I'm right here with you. And so for me, that's the only way that I know how to teach. That's the only way that I know how to live authentically as a healing guide, is by pushing the buttons and opening up the portal for spirituality to come through. And then when you do that, students walk in, your people will walk through. Even sometimes they're dragging, but they're gonna come through. And basically they're coming through for themselves.
Yeah. And they don't even know they're coming through. And you don't know. And it's things like with me and kind of like we were talking about before with your own story, I walked in Kundalini kind of dragging. It was this because I've said on other episodes, I hated yoga. Like I was not even low key, hated everything about it, thought it was trash. I thought the people were trash. I hated the clothes, just everything. I'm like, why would you ever do these things? This is trash. And this ain't for us either. And so, but now it's like whatever I'm going through, it's the medicine. It's like I always say this, it's like that old grandmother who has that room in the back is like, baby, go in that room and get that such and such. Like, and so I have certain kriyas, I have certain meditations that I do for different things. I have certain breath work to do for different things. For our listeners who may be new to yoga, who may do different types of practices, we love to know, what are your go-to practices, mantras for getting through stressful times, feeling overwhelmed, and just dealing with life? Because life be lifing sometimes.
Oh, life be lifing. Life be lifing.
Adulting in the
Oh,
evening.
oh my God. Can I be like 10 again?
Ah,
This is
the
gonna be 10.
dream. You didn't
A
know
dream.
when you were 10, you were like, I can't wait to be an adult.
I
You
know.
get to
I wanted to
adult.
drive so bad, but I was like driving the lawnmower. And now I don't even own a car.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that first time I
I
had to buy
hate driving.
laundry detergent. I was like, ooh, this is expensive.
I have to pay all these bills? Like me? Me.
Water too? This don't come with the apartment?
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh Lord, what was the question?
So what are your go-to
Oh, my
practices,
go-to practice.
mantras, whatever, to get through life? Because life be life.
Yes, yes. Okay. So one of the major go-tos is fist of anger. So for all my Kundalini heads out there, oh Lord, I'm like, yes, yes. Like that's the one I go to when I just need to power through the shit. Am I allowed to say that? Oh yeah,
Yes.
I can say that. So when I need to power through the shit, then the shenanigans, like it could be anything that is just difficult, right? And I'm like, I need to work through this. It could be something internal, it could be something external, but that's like a major go-to. Give me a good minute, 3 minutes for that. I can usually come out and feel a little bit more focused so I can like see which direction I need to maneuver in. Of course, I don't necessarily have a specific mantra, but my morning practice, which sets the tone for my day. And there are days where I've been jerked out of bed and I didn't do it. And I'm like, oh God, I need to stop. Is that I always do some type of gratitude. So I roll through giving thanks for my immediate family, like my mom, my dad. My dad's passed, I still give honor to him and my older brother. And then and it's really beautiful because as our immediate family has expanded, so I have like my nephews, and so I like roll through them. Like my sister-in-law, I never thought I was going to add my sister-in-law. You know, my brother got married. I was like, I guess I need to add her to the gratitude. I mean, she's holding him down. She's hanging out on the, she loved that man. So I'm like, I need to give thanks for that. So it's like I go through the immediate family, and like I have a cousin that she's definitely like a sister, so she's on that list. And then from there, I drop into just like my visualization. So my visualization is really about projecting how I want my life to feel later today, next week, in the next year. And so I just kind of move through some scenarios. When I need to feel grounded, I walk. I'm like out there walking. And it's been really beautiful because my walking in New Orleans is very different from my walking in DC. My it's I mean spiritually it's different. Like my walking in DC when I'm like, okay, let me go for a walk. It's just like my power walk. I'm like moving through and I'm like releasing, right? It's releasing, releasing, releasing. And it's fascinating. I mean, even in New York, when I lived in New York, it was the same thing, just releasing, releasing. But now when I take my walks, I'm moving through them still in kind of like a power walk kind of mode, but I'm listening. I'm listening to my ancestors. I'm listening to my guides. I'm allowing myself to be open to the pings. And so the walks now have become almost this weird little meditation practice. And even if it's like walking a mile and coming back home, it becomes this beautiful, moving, meditative moment that calms me down and allows me to ground. And again, to provide a little bit more clarity. And then the final thing that is like a go-to is I love like now, I mean, it used to be a vinyasa practice, but now I'm all about the gentle flow. Oh my God, just kind of, I'm still moving through my sun salutations, but I'm just like, la, la. And it's just become really slow and easy and soft.
Mm.
Yeah, soft.
I can resonate with that so much. I literally just said the same pretty much thing to Danielle a few episodes ago that like I started off power vinyasa at the gym. I was sweaty. It was great. I felt like, oh, this is hard, but this is good, you know, whatever. And then like now I call my Clyde and I both refer to my practice as me rolling around on the floor because I'm just like, just big, and like, and this, and I feel great. I feel
Mhm.
like that was what I was supposed to do today.
Yeah.
And that is very filling for me. And I feel like it sounds like I should say that everything you said here, these are things that you do that have allowed you to get to know yourself
Mm.
a lot better in a very, very intrinsic, this is what I do to trigger this and to release this and to have this and to just know yourself better. What advice would you give to someone looking to explore yoga as a path of self-discovery?
Yeah, I would really encourage people to take a variety of styles and practices and see what resonates. And also understand that you don't have to stick with one style. I mean, I literally said like this is my Kundalini and then this is my Hatha practice, right? They're two very different practices. And for someone that's exploring, drop in to any type of practice. If you find one you're like, oh, well, I kind of like how they move, or like, okay, I'm digging this, try it. But then if that teacher doesn't resonate with you, or if that practice doesn't resonate with you, try another one. Like kind of find your way and your groove, experiment. Because going back to my origin story, right, of connecting with this practice, when I moved to New York, I had 3 months. I didn't work. I mean, unfortunately, I was blessed. I had savings and I had an amazing partner at the time that was living in New York. And so I spent those 3 months checking out yoga studios. And it was just beautiful because I had an opportunity to tap a little bit more into myself. And I noticed what different practices did for me. And so then I found my teachers. I found the practices. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the Kundalini studio and once or twice a week, to get that energy revving and right, and also do some purification and cleansing. But then I know that I'm gonna go to my hatha class or my vinyasa practice and find the flow and get the power and the sweat moving, right? So I had even then there were still two very different practices. So try different things, try different teachers, and know that in that process, you're going to get to know yourself a lot better. And even 10 minutes or 10 years from now, you may switch up and do a totally different practice because you're so in tune with yourself, you'll know exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's being open to it being different.
Yes.
Because people are like, oh, this is what's always worked. And so this is my toolkit. I think through these practices and through these movements, that when you're open to the possibilities and it being shifting I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. I mean, my practice here in New Orleans, it is so different than what it was 2 years ago when I was living in DC. 2 years.
Yeah.
Because I'm so in tune with myself, but I'm also listening to what's around me and connecting. So I'm even thinking about, I'm like, this evening I'm going to take a class with an amazing teacher here in New Orleans. And I normally don't take classes with men. I
Well,
have
why
this
not?
weird,
I'm curious.
um, I never found truly a man that I could take class with that I could be consistent with.
Okay.
And I remember, and this is an interesting story, and he loves telling it too because he thinks it's funny as hell. But the day that I went to take his class, I had intended on taking class that Thursday. And I had something, I couldn't take class, and I was like, oh, I definitely want to go because I go to this studio. There's the only Black-owned studio in the city. So I'm like, I'm a support sister. So, and I look on the schedule, I'm like, it's a man. But the reason I had that face and that tone in my voice is that I received a text message from my ex, which was triggering me that day. And so I was like, no, I need my practice. I need to be guided. I knew that much. I didn't want to get on the mat myself because then I'd just be in my own crap. I knew because I was really in my triggers, all up in it. And so I was like, I'm going to show up to class. So I show up to class and I already booked online, registered myself. And I walk in, he's sitting at the desk. And he's like, hi, because he's never seen me before. Hello, we're all nice. And I was like, hey, I just keep walking. Attitude, attitude. And then I come back by, right? Because I drop, take my stuff off, put my stuff in the little cubbies, and I have my little yoga mat and I'm going in class. And he goes, can I get your name? I was like, I'm Faith. I'm walking class. And the class was so gentle
Mm.
and soothing. His voice was so nurturing and warm. And I mean, this man is like 6'5", muscle bound, like huge. He used to play pro ball and, boxing and all that kind of stuff. So he's a huge man, but he held us in that space so beautifully. I was like, I'll see you every Friday.
Mm.
I see you every Friday. That's my dude. Like, and the thing is, I had to be open, kind of coming back to what you said. It's like I had to be open to the practice. I showed up and I was open to the practice, but I was also open to something different. And that beautiful connection allowed me to see another part of me because this was really early on in my relocation to New Orleans. And it taught me or gave me the reminder that it's okay to be angry and be soft at the same time.
Mm. Sometimes we need that permission.
Mm-hmm. And he gave me permission. And then after class, he was like, I was like, thank you so much for class. He was like, girl, you came at me with daggers.
Me?
But he was like, but I was not going to take that. I was going to just make sure you had a good experience. I was like, yes. And then we shook hands and we've been friends ever since. So
I love
crazy.
that. We all need those moments. I know that you did your retreat in New Orleans. I know that you have online classes and courses, and you have a broadcast on Instagram. You were everywhere. But I also know that you're planning on doing a retreat, I believe, somewhere in Africa. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners about how they can connect with you and just
Absolutely.
kind of get that spiritually fly feeling?
Yeah. Um, so definitely my website is faithhunter.com. And so people can find all the things there. But kind of as you shared, I have my app, which is Elevate by Faith. And I always tell people go to my website and sign up there and then download the app because you get a better price. Other than that, Apple's going to be charging you all kinds of high fees. Um, and then you can also get the discount code that's on the website as well. So the app, just so people know or wondering what's in the app. So there are a course of yoga practices, meditation practices. There's actually more meditation than yoga practices inside the app. I did that on purpose. There are also affirmations. And then the thing that I started doing a couple of months ago is I started adding for 2004, I'm adding moon cycle rituals. And so I taught people through how to do a ritual for whatever moon cycle. Actually, I'm probably going to upload one today or tomorrow for the lunar eclipse. And then I have my courses, and I have mini courses, which are like, here's a 3-day, for anybody. They just want to like drop into meditation or drop into some healing for 3 days or 6 days or something like that. It's self-paced. You just download it from my website. Then I also have deep dive courses. So people that want to expand their knowledge, everything from meditation courses. I'm actually going to upload or actually finish the web page and whatnot for my meditation course that's going to be coming up this spring. So that course is going to start probably late May. And it's only probably about 5 sessions, and then you have some online stuff. So that meditation course is coming up for people that just want to drop into meditation more and learn about all the science, the neuroscience, but also the spirituality around meditation. But also if you want to become a certified meditation teacher under my method of teaching meditation, because it's a little different than other people. Because I do blending neuroscience with spirituality. And then, as you shared, did the retreat in New Orleans. People want me to do another one because they're like, wait a minute, I missed out, or I just want to come back to New Orleans. So probably going to do another one at some point. But then I also have Zanzibar. And it's interesting because I really haven't advertised it
I'm
online.
sorry, my bad. My
I've
bad.
only I sent it out to like followers and people that are like some of my private chats, and so and of course my email list. And we have people already registered, like people have already dropped their deposits. So the space is going to be filling up fast because we are only allowing 15 people because I want to keep it intimate. But that is going to be in Zanzibar, November 7th through the 14th. Actually, this week I am going to announce it on Instagram. Yeah, probably next Tuesday or Wednesday, and open it up for whoever wants to show up. Because now my two relatives have already signed up, so they have spots. So now everybody else can go. Because I needed my cousins, I need my female cousins. I was like, girls, y'all got to do this with me. And they're like, we're on it. So yeah, Zanzibar is happening. And I've just so people know, I've been to Zanzibar more than once. I've done retreats there. I think this will probably be my fourth one.
Mhm.
And I'm partnering with another company this time, and it's called Curious on Tanzania. And amazing woman, her and I connected years ago, actually pre-pandemic, and we were going to try and schedule something for 2020, but of course didn't get a chance to do that. And so we circled back around to each other and decided to schedule one for 2024. And it's going to be really beautiful. It's a Swahili experience. So every single day is another Swahili word. And the day is inspired by that Swahili word, from the meditation practice, the yoga practice, from the food that we're going to eat to the excursions that we're going to take, are all inspired by that one particular word. So it's extremely curated experience. And for people that are like, well, do I have to do all the excursions? Because somebody did email me that. I was like, no, if you want to just lounge on the beach, we're right on the beach. You can stay at the beach the whole time and just eat with us. If that's your healing. And then every now and then you want to fall asleep during the meditation, I'm good too. Like whatever you need for your own healing, come to Zanzibar, because for me, it is one of my favorite places in the world. It's one of those rare places that when I arrived and landed, I was like, oh, I'm home. I'm home. And I don't know if any people know about their Hopla. Is that how you pronounce it? The Hoplograph. I have L1 in mind, so it only makes sense why I felt good when I landed. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for impacting the lives of many and helping our listeners see how they can utilize this beautiful practice that has shaped all of our lives in a way that can help them heal and just kind of move one step further. Maybe it's one toe further on their spiritual healing.
Absolutely.
I feel like the biggest thing that I can take away from this conversation with you, which is abundantly clear in all of your content anyway, and the things that you produce, is just the fact of the concept, I guess, of taking from this what you need. You know, with respect to the overall practice. There is respect for it includes all these limbs and these elements and these pieces of information, and you have to respect the elements around you, the space that you're in, and you are very aware. So you have to respect the things that are going on around you. And in that, you're still saying, but take what you need from this. Yeah. And I think that that's kind of a thing. Like that's part of what we're doing here. We're trying to take down the barriers around yoga, especially for people that look like us, right? And we see it as one thing. And this conversation just enforces more that it is so far from that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you both, ladies. I really appreciate it. And I mean, this has been a juicy conversation, and just even listening to your stories. I've learned, like, I'm always taking something away from when I'm connecting with other people. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Last question before we wrap up. I'm curious for you, what does it mean to be Black on the mat?
Oh, wow. For me to be Black on the mat is for me to be myself all the time. Oh my God. Wow. Whoa. I have to be myself. And I think that is the most powerful piece, especially when you said it's important for us to be represented. I find that as a Black yoga teacher, when I first started teaching, especially in DC, New York, it wasn't a big deal. In DC, one of the reasons I opened my yoga studio is because students weren't as receptive to my method and my way of teaching, because I was me. I was going to play the music I wanted to play. I was going to say the words I wanted to say. I was going to push the buttons I needed to push. I was going to talk about my ancestors. I was going to talk about Tupac probably in the same sentence. So it's about, for me, being Black on the mat is about being authentically me.
Ashe. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Black on the Mat.
Let's continue connecting, sharing our stories, and sowing the benefits of having a yoga practice in your life.
Subscribe to Black on the Mat on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'm Seisha, and you can find me at Thick Thigh Yoga on all social media platforms and thickthighyoga.com.
I'm Danielle, and you can find me at HelloWell with Danielle on IG, YouTube, and HelloWellWithDanielle.com.